Good afternoon, good morning, and good day. It's your boy, Big Buppo. Hey, notice how I didn't make a joke with my name this time? Or did I? Am I gaslighting you, or is that just something you made up? Who knows? Who says? I've probably had a total of 48 hours of sleep in the last 3 weeks, and the only thing keeping me awake is spite and enough caffeine to put down a toddler via proxy. But let's get back to the topic at hand. Have you ever wanted a ranked mode in your Nightreign gaming PVE experience? Have you ever wanted the toxicity of a League of Legends ranked game in your Dark Souls playthrough? Have you ever wanted to experience online CBT via a pseudo-hero shooter?
Maximum pain I must endure. Okay, here we go.
Have you ever wanted teammates that have the good at Elden Ring hyperfixation?
I spit at you, you fucking dog shit trash. GG.
But instead, you got the teammates that have the I can't be left alone without adult supervision special needs? Well, neither did I, but here we are, and I present to you the Elden Ring Nightreign's Deep of Night mode. On September 10th, 2025, Junya Ishizaki released the Hunter's Nightmare on the world in the form of Elden Ring Nightreign's Deep of Night mode. Originally scheduled for September 11th, my friends and I assumed that we were going to get an Everdark form of Hjolster, Scourge of the Limveld Towers, and he was going to hit the game in a big way. But they decided to release it early in typical Fromsoftware fashion. But make no mistake, this was not a gift to the world. In fact, I have some choice things to say about this game mode. But first, we'll elaborate on what it is, what changes it brought, and what said changes might look like on paper versus in practice. Now, as you probably already know, I'm not the numbers guy. I'm not here to talk to you about different ratios and percentages and all that math shit. We'll leave that up to the pretentious nerds who love breaking it down for you, like Cyrobe and others. I am the vibes guy, and let me tell you, the vibes are fucked.
You're ruining the vibe.
Let's start off with the good things. Each character got their own special relic that changes their abilities or their playstyle in a big way. Wilder got bleed procs on his grappling hook. Guardian got damage negation buffs for allies when he uses his abilities. Duchess got iframes when she uses her restage. Raider got a buff to his headbutt that inflicts debuffs on enemies. Revenant got an increase to her FP, Recluse got an increase to damage negations, and Executor got healing when his passive triggers, making it better but not the best. And Iron Eye was proven to be Ishizaki's favorite by far by getting a Poison Moth's Infinity, where his mark now applies poison and then triggers burst damage on poison targets without resetting the status of the ailment, making 2 to 3 Iron Eyes on one team the fastest way to climb rank in this new game mode. Over the sheer amount of DPS, making Iron Eye the best status boy in the game, especially with the new relics that change character stats where Iron Eye gets less health and more arcane. That's on par with Executors, but remember, Iron Eye can apply all of these statuses at a distance. He doesn't just get to do whatever he wants, he gets to stay on top.
You can't keep getting away with it! You can't keep getting away with it!
Ishizaki's less favored children get new stat distributions that turn Raider into a mage, Guardian into a paladin, Duchess and Revenant into melee builds, Recluse into a tank caster, and Executor into a pure tank or a Glacier Cannon for even more arcane, which on paper you'd think is great and better at applying statuses, but how does one apply status when he cracks like the shell of an egg beneath the weight of an average Executor main? Now, these Deep of Night relics are fun, but none of those new relics carry over to the base game mode, so if you've gotten comfortable and happy using these new playstyles, then you're going to have to bear with the fact that you can no longer use them while playing in casual. You're in the real Sweatlord lobbies now, boy. Personally, I would have really liked it if the reward for playing the Deep of Night mode was the fact that we could take these relics back to the base game. It would have been a nice reward for playing on harder difficulties and pushing yourself to beat tougher bosses for the reward of pseudo build making, tailoring your character's abilities to your preferred playstyle. This would also pay homage to the games that came before Nightreign that functioned more like this with their leveling systems, preserving the soul of the series and what made these games interesting for the most of us. But I digress. The new weapon types they've added are also only available in the Deep of Night mode. These are cursed weapons. They come with 2 beneficial passives and 1 downside. This can range from your average passives like successive attacks increase damage negation to the same ones you get as a body buff, usually from Evergels but also from camps and forts, like increased physical or affinity damage negation but at a slightly lower percent, so 8% versus the usual 12%. The downsides on the other hand can be pretty overwhelming if you're not paying attention to what you pick up. For example, if you get the downside that increases the storm's damage by 100 to 150%, these will stack with each other and you can experience what it's like to be a coughing baby versus a hydrogen bomb.
Give me your money.
Okay, you got the key. What is happening to your health, Buppo?
Same goes for the new relics. These are also cursed in a similar fashion, with some effects being manageable, like less healing from your flask, while others are downright horrifying, like death blight buildup on every hit, or a gradual buildup of a status when you're below max HP.
Yeah, you already know I'm obsessed with it. I can't get enough. Back with another milk. Help! Help! Help me! Help!
Mind you, these usually don't outweigh the reward of stacking physical attack up +4 on 3 different relics and watching your damage nearly double, because trust me, you're gonna need it. When I started my rank climb, I was a huge fan of these relics, but the further you get, the more glaring many of these downsides become. See, Depth 1 gives you a false sense of security. If you're like me, instead of applying for a job, you've poured 650 hours into this Fromsoftware title. So you too have probably ripped through Depth 1 as your favorite character, playing the way you usually play. Ergo, being a raider main, tanking everything, and swinging your big fucking schmeat with reckless abandon. But then came Depth 2, and all of a sudden, things are hitting you back just as hard, if not harder. So you rework your relics, you learn better dodge timings, you start looking for specific weapons and passives, you play better, and you still lose. So you drop your favorite character for someone higher on the tier list like Wilder or Duchess, and you start winning again. Until Depth 3, things are hitting you hard, and I mean 1950s tradwife who forgot to preheat the oven levels of hard. These creatures are beating your ass, so now you rework your builds a second time, but this time you're prioritizing damage negations, dormant powers for specific weapons, and you've learned that team comp actually matters here, and your team is nothing without an Iron Eye, because even if Atlas couldn't carry the dead weight of your incompetence, your passives make up for it by giving your teammates better items to carry you with. And to anyone picking Revenant at this depth thinking they're Himothy,
you're not that guy, pal, trust me. You're not that guy.
you are throwing. Please stop. You are the active reason you're stuck at the gates of Depth 3 and keeping everyone there with you. And if you haven't learned to make meta picks for your team, you will. This is Deep of Night. Deep of Night is like the Hat Man and a large amount of Benadryl. It does not care about your pronouns or your feelings, especially once you hit Depth 4. Depth 4 was my personal hell. This is where you have now considered dropping Evergels because realistically you're getting 2, maybe 3 done per run. Even though you've gotten your pathing down to a science and you are hitting level 15 with your teammates at the end of every expedition with 200k runes to spare, your chances of losing to the Night Lord are still a 50-50, either getting one shot by the chicanery that is Nightreign's Depth 4 balance, or you've lost the battle of attrition against Everdark Augur or Everdark Noster.
Gary, I'm absorbing his blows like I was made of some kind of spongy material.
Basically, in the Deep of Night, tanks like Raider, Guardian, and Executor, if you choose to build them that way, have become completely obsolete due to the fact that everything will 1 or 2 shot you at any level, everything does too much stamina damage to block, and your ability to dodge is hindered by your lack of iframes, especially in the case of Guardian. Now, if you know of a build where this works, please share it in the comments because I would love to play these characters again. But these issues become glaringly obvious past Depth 3 if you've somehow made it this far playing those characters, because not only does everything simply one-shot you, the game has now become a drop-dependent gamble. You will quickly learn to forego all damage increases for anything that gives you a sliver of survivability. If you're playing and you have an IQ above room temperature, you know that a gray dagger with 24% damage negation at full HP is 10 times better than any legendary weapon without a damage negation passive, and that any kind of cursed weapon with the continuous HP loss passive is absolutely useless to anyone actually trying to climb rank. In fact, if your goal is to climb rank, then the established meta and my personal experience has been a team composed of Wilder, Duchess, and Iron Eye, or Wilder and 2 Iron Eyes, because someone's got a tank. Anyone who's ever picked anyone else in my runs have either lost me the run 9 times out of 10, with the only exceptions being good recluse players and the fluke of a hitless revenant. That was a genuine miracle. But in my experience, anyone picking not Wilder, Duchess, or Iron Eye have led to the hardest throws I've ever seen. See, the Depth 4 grind is where the nightmare truly begins, because in the other depths, one loss was worth maybe 200 to 400 points. So that's 1 or 2 games of playtime. But in Depth 4, one loss is usually around 600 points. That's 3 victories gone, plus the time you just spent losing. This wouldn't bother me if it wasn't for the fact that it takes 30 to 45 minutes to complete an expedition. So if you win 3 times and lose once, that's 2 to 3 hours of wasted time. 3 hours of your time lost over and over and over and over and over. And don't even think about quitting mid-game, even if your teammates with 2 revenants that go down with 3 bars every time a trash mob looks in their general direction, because that will result in a drop down to the very bottom of your rank of 1,000 points. Or so they say. I would never take that risk. Now, some of you may be thinking, well bro, just play solo, it's way easier. No. In this mode, one mistake is the end of a run. And I don't mean just dying once, I mean not getting the right drops in day 1. Damage negation at full HP or successive hits for a damage negation are a must-have, because if not, there is no chance of winning other than doing a perfect 45-minute hitless run that's hardly worth the time and effort of 200 points for the potential 600 point loss. That and your extra damage, air quotes, and rune increase does not compensate for the lack of windows and openings to actually do that damage. A singular red boss is nearly unapproachable at any level in Depth 4 solo mode, because it usually becomes a half-day commitment given the fact that they don't stagger, and it very much feels like it's never your turn to attack, because one trade means lost time either respawning or healing. This isn't a problem when you're playing in trios and someone always has an opportunity to hit the boss, and if you go down, you have a chance of being revived in 1 second via someone's ult versus having to wait for the game to decide how long it will take to respawn and the run back for your runes. In base game, going solo felt like a guaranteed win, for me at least, but in the deep of night, it's always been the other way around, personally, and from what I've seen with other streamers. The only saving grace is that it turns out if you quit out in solo at the start of an expedition, you don't experience any rank loss, so you can preserve your points if you don't get off to a good start, and as much as this may be considered cheating by some, it is a good way to test out your relics and see what does and doesn't work at your current depth. So I genuinely do recommend doing this for test purposes only. That being said, you're better off playing in trios to climb rank. Even with the potential for losing in trios, your win rate would likely take the same amount of time, if not less time, than attempting to solo climb via quit outs. On the topic of rank preservation, most games with rank systems are there for the sake of player versus player experiences, where winning can lead you to tournaments on grand stages, where real money can be won, careers can be made, and lives can be changed. So with the importance of that, good players are usually rewarded with win streak bonuses and rank loss protection. For those who have the skill to be at the top, they'll climb rank and make their way up quickly, whereas those of lesser ability will accumulate losses, leaving them where they are meant to be. This isn't me dissing anyone, it's just kind of how these rank systems are supposed to work. In Nightreign, however, no such protections existed. It was only 2 weeks out into the launch that they introduced a rank loss protection system which only activates at the gate of a new depth. So, if you were to win 6 games, putting you at depth 4 with 5,200 points, and you lost twice, you'd be sent crashing back down to 4,000 points right at the gate. But if you were to lose 2 more games, you'd stay at the gate with those same 4,000 points. Remember, each win is only worth 200 points. The only factors that can increase your points are if you have no map, or if the boss is unknown at the start of the expedition. Both of those only reward you with an extra 100 points. And no, fighting an Everdark version of any of the bosses at any depth does not increase your victory points. You cannot score higher than a potential 300 points unless you're paired with someone in a higher rank and played at their depth for only an extra 50 measly points. But the game will usually lower the depth to accommodate for the lower ranked player. This can essentially keep you in lower ranks for much longer than other games with ranked systems, so you'll be paired up with players who may have been struggling in the lower depths for the past 3 weeks, and you now are burdened with the responsibility of carrying them to a 150 point victory for a potential of a 400 to 600 point loss. And yes, they actually lower the points if you are playing in a lower depth, despite the fact that you're in a higher rank. Is this fair? In my opinion, no. The game stopped playing fair around depth 2 and started abusing you like a producer on a Nickelodeon show around depth 3. Now some of you may be saying, Buppo, you're just mad because you're bad at this game, and my favorite YouTuber who is so much better than you, and obviously played more hours than you, and knows his character better than you, and is lower rank than you. Yeah, listen, I do not consider myself good at these games because people like Lil Aggie and Ongball exist, but I did manage to get myself into depth 5 in the first 3 weeks that this game mode launched, and I've got to say, I hate it here. There was nothing satisfying about this journey. People talk about peaks and valleys with these games, but the peaks were so incredibly outweighed by the valleys that it only felt like I was descending into genuine madness.
Enough. I have endured more than enough.
I lost sleep over how awful my experiences were. Losses were devastating and victories were short-lived, and felt more like relief from cortisol than a genuine hit of dopamine. My excitement for hitting depth 5 wasn't because I was happy to achieve it, it was to be rid of it and finally not feel obliged by my own stubbornness to play Nightreign anymore. In fact, this video would have probably come out a week or so sooner, but the game mode genuinely sent me into a downward spiral, killing my motivation to work on anything Nightreign related. The Deep of Night mode made me hate this game, and I finally was able to put my finger on why. In base Elden Ring, as well as the majority of the Soulsborne series, you start the game off as nothing, a nobody, a foul tarnished pillaging the lands of gold, a lowly hollow, a nameless hunter, whatever. But slowly, you battle your way through the game, building your character's power up until you've become an unstoppable force and claim the throne as a true Elden Lord. If you return to earlier parts of the game, you dominate, you destroy, there's nothing that can stand in your way. In Nightreign, it feels like the complete opposite. The more time you spend crafting your builds and relics and learning the game's mechanics, the more the game hits you hard and beats you down for it. And when you return to the start of an expedition, in the higher depths, all of a sudden, a lowly noble, barely capable of lifting their sword, can now take you out in 2 hits while you need to hit them 3 times back. It's just not a good feeling. It's artificial difficulty in the same style as an MMO with reskinned, recolored enemies who simply have more health and hit harder. No new moves, no new patterns, no new bosses. I understand that the content is free, and I won't complain too much, but I've always found that Fromsoftware was better than that. Personally, I think they should have waited to release the Deep of Night mode with the DLC, and instead of upping all the damage and turning every enemy into an unbreakable sponge, they should have simply added bosses with assets they already have. Give us a chance to fight Rykard if the Serpent Hunter drops, so it actually has a use in the game.
It's supposed to be a fucking RPG. What role am I playing? The fucking victim? Jesus!
Give us a Lunar Sisters fight with Ranala and Rolana, and their movesets would complement each other.
Hey, stop! Why?
Give us an enticing challenge like Orenstein and Small back in Dark Souls 1. Let new players experience what we once had and made these games memorable. Give us real difficulty around the concept of having to learn their new movesets without rendering half the roster of characters obsolete due to damage and health maxing of already existing enemies. This company has the assets, they have the resources, and they have the ability and the budget. It just feels like FromSoft could have done so much more with this, but instead we got a no-hit challenge run mode, and I gotta say that's just not for me. In conclusion, there's a few things I like about the Deep of Night mode: new weapons, new relics, and new ways to engage with the meta that are interesting, but turning everything into a no-hit challenge run isn't the way I want to play these games, and I believe this is the case for most of the player base as well, especially if you've bothered to learn and engage with the build making mechanics of the prior installments. I understand that Nightreign is very much its own thing and very experimental for a FromSoftware title, but I hope they lean more into what the base game is versus the direction they've decided to go for with this ranked mode. Like, why even have ranked PVE at all? That part I still can't wrap my head around, other than having bragging rights, I guess. But hey, it's free content at the end of the day, so I can't complain too much, right? That said, I hope they focus their efforts on making interesting new bosses for the DLC. We still haven't gotten an Everdark version of Hjolster, and we haven't heard much about what the DLC is actually going to be. Fingers crossed we get a new map, or at least new Shifting Earth events, and hopefully a hand-to-hand martial arts style character. That's what I'm really hoping for. Like, give me Dryleaf Nathaniel or something, man. I want to punch a dragon. Anyways, here's your obligatory YouTuber script slop. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you made it this far, feel free to leave a like and a comment, maybe even subscribe. I've taken a break from live streaming Nightreign if you've tuned into my streams. I actually started a playthrough of Hollow Knight Silksong, so swing by if you want to see that. If not, give me some game recommendations so I have something to play until the DLC drops or the new Tarnished edition of Elden Ring comes out. But until then, you can check out my other videos, and that's going to be it for now, so I'll see you next time, you little freaks.